Azek Ahriman is the former first captain and chief librarian of the 15th Legion of the Legione Astartes, the Thousand Sons. Ahriman, alongside his twin brother Ormuz, would be inducted into the ranks of the Legion following the culmination of the Terran Unification Wars, and the two would fight together in many battles during the course of the Emperor's Great Crusade. After approximately 5 years, many of the warriors within the Thousand Sons Legion would begin to unexpectedly develop a multitude of psychic abilities as a result of their gene seed, which was derived from the genetic template of Magnus the Red, the single most powerful Primarch in terms of sheer psychic potency. While such unanticipated powers were initially seen as a boon, this psychic awakening would also result in many of the Legion's warriors spontaneously producing a multitude of physical mutations, which would often manifest with such rapidity and intensity that they would regularly prove to be fatal. To the Thousand Sons, this genetic flaw would come to be known simply as the Flesh Change. Over time, the Flesh Change would begin afflicting more and more of the Legion's warriors, leading to many suggesting that the Thousand Sons should simply be disbanded and subsequently erased from Imperial records. Despite this, the Legion's fortunes would change, seemingly for the better, following their reunion with their Primarch. Shortly after the Great Crusade had reached the world of Prospero and united Magnus with his Gene Sons, the Primarch, moved by his Legion's plight, would conduct a mysterious ritual to cure his sons of the Flesh Change. The Primarch's efforts would initially appear to be successful, although a great many warriors, including that of Ormuz, would ultimately perish. Azek, however, would be amongst the few warriors of the Legion that persevered, although his brother's death would fill his heart with both grief and fear that the Flesh Change could one day return. Ahriman's apprehensions would soon be proven true, as after a few short years, the Flesh Change would begin to manifest within the Legion's warriors once more, during the pacification of Heliosa. The return of the Flesh Change would have a long-lasting effect upon Ahriman's psyche, instilling him with not only dread, but anger at Magnus's failure to purge the flaw from its Legion, with Ahriman even feeling that he had been betrayed by his Gene Father's inability to save his sons from this genetic curse. During the final hours of the burning of Prospero, following Magnus's defeat in battle at the hands of his brother Leman Russ of the Space Wolves, Ahriman would act as a conduit for his Primarch's power, and would transport both himself and the other surviving members of his Legion to the demon world of Sortiarius, which existed within the depths of warp space. Despite the curse of the Flesh Change still being a prevalent threat to the Legion, Ahriman was forbidden by Magnus from making any attempt to develop a cure. Despite the Primarch's wishes, the librarian would nonetheless begin his research in secret. Following the culmination of the Horus Heresy, the Flesh Change would begin to manifest throughout the ranks of the Thousand Sons with ever-increasing rapidity. Fearing that the Legion would soon become nothing more than gibbering chaos spawn, Ahriman would convince a number of the Legion's most potent psykers to aid him in conducting a great spell that was intended to expunge the Flesh Change from their gene seed once and for all. This spell, known as the Rubric, would unleash a storm of magical energy so great that even demons fled from it in sheer terror. After several days and nights, the spell would finally end after Magnus himself intervened. The Rubric would prove to be both a tremendous success and utter failure, for while a number of the Legion's more powerful psykers would find themselves cured of the Flesh Change, and even find that their powers had been greatly augmented, the majority of the Thousand Sons would have their bodies reduced to little more than ash and dust, while their souls became magically sealed within their armor. These warriors, now known as Rubrici, had become little more than mindless automata, forever enslaved to the whims of those that survived the effects of the Rubric. Magnus, who by this point had ascended to demonhood, became enraged by Ahriman's actions, and proceeded to banish Azek and those that had aided him from Sortiarius, condemning them to forever roam the Eye of Terror and beyond. Since his banishment, Ahriman has sought for a way to restore his battle brothers to true life, by essentially reversing the effects of the Rubric. But is it in any way possible for the Rubric to be undone? As it stands, there have been at least 2 separate incidents where the Thousand Sons have attempted to undo the Rubric, with one event in particular even proving to be somewhat successful. The first of these, which ultimately proved to be unsuccessful, is documented within the novel Mark of Faith. The sorcerer, Amenthus, would begin undertaking a ritual in an attempt to restore his brother, Ishelin, to true life, by utilising a dying yet powerful psyker named Sophika as a conduit through which to channel the energies of the warp. As Ishelin slowly became infused with more and more energy drawn from the warp, as well as Sophika's very soul and life force, the effects of the Rubric would slowly become undone. However, Amenthus' attempts to restore his brother to life would ultimately end in failure, as before the ritual could successfully be completed, Ishelin's armor would be torn open by the inquisitorial assassin, Yumia, sending the Rubricai's soul back into the warp. The second documented attempt by the Thousand Sons to reverse the effects of the Rubric is shown within the novel Ahriman Unchained. After acquiring the lost tomes of Maevastu Callimachus, the personal scribe of Magnus the Red, Ahriman would begin researching into the effects of his Rubric before making preparations to cast an updated and revised version of the spell. Following his return to Sortiarius, Ahriman and his Cabal would perform this second Rubric, with the storm of power that had been unleashed appearing to utterly destroy Magnus the Red. Little did Ahriman realise that the knowledge for this version of the Rubric had been implanted into his mind by Magnus himself, who would commandeer Ahriman's ritual in order to reconstitute his shattered fragments into a physical form, save for those shards that represented the Primarch's noblest qualities, which would become forever lost. However, this attempt to repair the damage done to the Legion would have a small measure of success, as the Rubric Marine Helio Isidorus would be restored to true life, though at the apparent cost of his memories. But while the rituals conducted by both Amenthus and Ahriman are shown to be capable of undoing the effects of the Rubric, such attempts, despite the sheer amount of power being utilised in their respective ceremonies, will only result in 1 or 2 warriors at a time being rejuvenated. As such, is it possible for the Rubricai to be restored to life, en masse? As it turns out, there is at least one being within the galaxy that is shown to have the power to perform such a task. Ivrain, the emissary of Iniad, the Eldari god of the dead. During a battle within the webway between the Inari and the Prodigal Sons warband of Ahriman, Ivrain, along with her bodyguard, the Vizarg, and the Incarnate, the avatar of Iniad, would be teleported outside the boundaries of the webway itself by Ahriman. Ivrain would reveal the true extent of her powers over life and death to the sorcerer by returning a number of his Rubricai to the realm of the living in exchange for the Triumvirate being returned to the safety of the webway. While Ahriman was distracted by the sudden flood of emotions at the sight of his brothers being returned to life, the walls of the webway would be collapsed by the Inari, resulting in these former Rubricai being dragged into the depths of warp space, forcing Ahriman, in both his grief and anger, to flee. What these 3 examples have indeed shown is that with enough power at one's disposal, it is indeed possible to reverse the effects of the Rubric and restore the Thousand Sons to bodies of flesh and blood. However, such an undertaking would require an obscene amount of power, and even then, such rituals may only succeed in restoring a figurative handful of warriors from their state of undeath. But could there be a way to effectively sidestep the Rubric without needing to conduct any form of sorcerous ritual? Potentially, yes. As detailed within the 8th edition Thousand Sons Codex, Ahriman, following his encounter with the Inari, believes that the cure to the Rubric can be found within the realm of Camorra, the home of the Drukhari race. The Drukhari, and in particular the fleshcrafters known as the Homunculi, are known to be capable of resurrecting the dead. It would appear that Ahriman intends to march his forces upon Camorra in order to strike a bargain with the Homunculi to restore those members of the Thousand Sons that had succumbed to the Rubric into true living bodies. While the methods of resurrection employed by the homunculi typically require for the remains of the deceased in order to be properly performed, it is potentially possible that the dust within each and every Rubric Marine, which to reiterate are the remains of their physical bodies, are more than capable of being utilised for such a purpose, especially in conjunction with the fact that the souls of the Rubrici still remain trapped within their armour. Alternatively, perhaps Ahriman intends to launch a raid upon Gamora in order to steal the knowledge behind such processes for himself. But should Ahriman indeed strike a deal with the homunculi in order to restore his brothers to life, then the next question one would need to ask is just what exactly could the Thousand Sons give the Drukhari in return for such services? Only time will tell. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.